This video presentation is made possible by the SLO County Department of Education and the SLO Co-Arts Collaborative. For over a century, the Central Coast of California has been a haven for people from all walks of life. Pioneers, entrepreneurs, farmers, innovators, artists, dreamers. People escaping the city life to find beautiful landscapes, rich culture, seeking prosperity, and most importantly, joy. For a lot of us, we find joy in art, whether we're makers or just lucky enough to enjoy the art of others.
Hi, I'm Peter Henry Schroeder. I'm a local documentary filmmaker here in San Luis Obispo County. I invite you to come with me now as we actually get to go talk to some of these artists firsthand and learn about what makes them tick. What are some of the challenges they face and how do they do this on a day-to-day basis? Where does their inspiration come from and how do they actually find the joy in their art? What really gives them that creative juice?
My name is Drew Davis, and I typically say I do painting style called modern impressionism. So I typically use oil paints, but also acrylics. Primarily working in oils, and sometimes both, and sometimes mixed media with different oil pastels or pencils and stuff like that. But impressionist art is like kind of older, more of you're capturing your impression of the scene. Whereas expressionism is more of an internal expression, more emotional. So I call it modern impressionism because it's a little bit more contemporary than your kind of traditional impressionist work, like Monet and Van Gogh and stuff. So it's a little bit looser, maybe a little bit more abstract, or maybe leaning a little bit more towards expressionism. I started doing plein air painting, which is just a fancy French word for painting outside or on location. I initially thought that I didn't like the idea because I didn't really like a lot of the kind of more traditional plein air paintings that I saw, but then I was introduced to, I started seeing a couple different artists that I really appreciated what they were doing. I definitely fell in love with just the whole idea of painting outside, just being in the sunshine and painting a scene and capturing it. So I work differently in that environment. I almost feel like it's more educational, almost like school in a sense. Painting outside and looking at a scene, I am really focusing on more detail, capturing it more accurately. Because I'm there and you're seeing the light and the colors firsthand, where in my studio, I feel a little bit more free to kind of experiment or kind of push the boundaries of the subject or the colors, kind of use my imagination a little bit more. So they're two different kind of working styles.
What kind of advice do you have for the kids?
Do what you enjoy. Love it. Whatever you do it with your whole heart. If it's art, singing, music, no matter what, just go for it. Dancing, plays and stuff. It's all awesome.
That's right.
It is.
Amen.
Greatest thing out there. What we need more of is more arts and entertainment in the schools.
It's important.
Yes.
It's very important.
I mean, it's all the art classes that I've done, woodworking, ceramics, drawing, and all of that helps me in my business today.
Yeah.
As an artist, redoing furniture. So.
Yeah. If you need any upholstery done, talk to Randy here. Fine Touch Upholstery.
You guys have a great one.
Thanks, Randy. This is my art gallery, and this is Picasso. Getting some sunshine. But shall I show you in? So this is my space here. This front half here is more of my kind of gallery show space, where I kind of put more of my finished work and have my sign-in list here, which this is kind of cool. This has been I got this book probably 20 years ago. I've been using this, and I'm on the very last page. So this starts at 2003. All of my guests who have signed in over the years. So this is a really important part of business here, is having a guest list, having a sign-in sheet, email. I do giclée canvas prints, and so these are prints that are actually on canvas that I have I actually texture them by hand, so you can see I actually have original paint strokes and textures on there. So it's probably the one of the highest end kind of print methods you can use. Obviously, I have a whole bunch of I like to do postcards and greeting cards. Last year, I made my first art book. So this is a decade of my work, probably 140 of my local landmark paintings that are all it's arranged by city. So I have a lot of my different plein air, just all local stuff, so San Luis and Morro Bay and Pismo. But I have some of these little QR codes, which are kind of fun. So when you scan that, it actually goes to the painting process of that piece. I've done a calendar every year for quite a few years now. So I always do a little local calendar. Again, just have kind of my more recent, my top 12 pieces from that year. So these I sell in a lot of local stores, like Hands Gallery and California Fresh and Chamber and different places. These are what I hand out all the time, and so I just do these nice little postcards with some info on it, kind of just like a giant oversized business card. Yeah, so actually I just returned from a 3-week road trip to Colorado Springs where I was painting along the way, kind of doing a little plein air painting road trip. And so I have this selection down here, so like these ones down here, that was Garden of the Gods in Colorado Springs. That was when I was visiting my friend there. He lived really close to that. And then on the way, this was Aspen, Colorado, the Maroon Bells there. This was a Catamount Reservoir with Pikes Peak in the background. So these 6 in there. I have one other one that were from the road trip. Before that, before I left, actually, this is probably my most recent piece that I was really happy with that I finished up. Probably one of my more recent favorites is the Shell Creek. And I actually went out to Shell Creek Road when we had had all that rain. Huge wildflower bloom. So I actually went out there probably like 4 times and got photos and painted a few times. This was one from the Carrizo Plains, so I was kind of looking out there. This was one of the first ones I did up there. Just another view of the Shell Creek Road. Another thing that I've experimented with recently that has been pretty popular and pretty fun is I'm actually using neon, fluorescent oil paint, and so I'm incorporating that. And so a lot of my paintings now have, I like to say there's 3 paintings in one, and so you have one with just regular light, and then you have one when you turn the black light on, and it, a lot of the more landscapes, it looks like a sunset, and then the third version is when there's no regular light and just straight black light, and it has an even more intense kind of a look to it. Here's an example of, like I said, there's 3 paintings in one. You have one with regular light, and you have one with the black light, and you kind of see it kind of gives some stars, and you can see the cars kind of light up. I've actually played with neon and fluorescence since I started painting in acrylic. And then fairly recently I just started to play with it again, and I actually found a brand of oil-based neon colors that kind of harder to find. For some reason most major brands they don't make oil-based neons, but I found this little kind of mom and pop place on the East Coast that makes them, and I order special from there. So what's cool is that they integrate where it still looks, it looks, you can't really tell without the light, but then when you add the neon, it just kind of gives it this neat sort of highlight, kind of glowing effect in more of a subtle way. So, you know, you see a lot of different neon works that are really just super vibrant, like psychedelic, you know, where this is more of a, you know, just kind of a subtle shift. It's almost like a built-in NFT, or it's almost like a verifier, you know, like you can tell if it's original by like shining black light when you get the little spots, you know. I often say that my abstract work is actually much more difficult to do than my more representational or, you know, landscape stuff, because it's I'm accessing like a deeper part of like my emotional state when I'm working, and so it can be pretty taxing and challenging. You know, like if you think about, you know, with abstract work, like you're starting nowhere, and you have to end up somewhere, but you're not really sure where. so it's just kind of like you like walking into the abyss, you know, just like you're just kind of like start throwing paint around and then start looking at how it's working and how the colors are working together and the composition. Doing abstract and just kind of free flowing stuff is a whole nother aspect of learning. It's more about learning about how the medium works, you know. So it's like doing different color combinations or playing with the paint, you know, in ways that you normally wouldn't do, or to give yourself permission to like mess up or do something that's, you know, to overwork. So sometimes I go to a painting and I'm, you know, like, well, it's always a challenge to not overwork something, you know, to overpaint it. Like there's always a stopping place. Sometimes I like to push that boundary, right? So it's like with abstract or just when I'm experimenting, I will kind of purposefully push it beyond where I think I can go with it, and that helps to, like, you know your boundary, or like know how far you can push something. I think it's probably similar to like working out, right? You want to kind of go to that edge, and then just like you go a little bit farther, just to kind of see like, can I do this? And then it's kind of like growing that muscle. My education, like, is, I would say I'm mostly self-taught, with the exception of a handful of workshops. I contemplated going to art school and talking to different people, and I decided it wasn't really worth, you know, going into crippling debt to do something I was already really pursuing myself. Really, I've just kind of learned by painting a lot. I mean, you learn how to use a material by just playing with it, experimenting, and, you know, trying out different mediums, different surfaces, different subjects, different styles. Like, I'm just kind of drawn, you know, I'm drawn to a certain kind of style that I like, and so that's the way I paint. For someone that might be newer to painting or creating, like it might take them more time, you know, because it's unfamiliar. So like there's different stages of like, you know, of mastering any skill. You have first is unconscious incompetence, right? So you're unaware that you don't know what you're doing is the first stage, and then you become aware. So then it's conscious incompetence. So then you're aware that you don't know what you're doing. And first you're unaware. Now you're aware you don't really know what you're doing. And then the next stage is conscious competence, and so you're aware and you're competent. So you're doing it, but it's kind of, you're still using your awareness. But then the final stage is unconscious competence. Right? So that's when you're no longer having to think about the thing you're doing, but you're skilled at it. Right? So that's the final step in learning any skill, is this kind of 4 stages. Right? You know, I think so many people in today's world and culture or whatever, we're all stuck in our left brain. you know, the analytical, the logical, the thinking, you know, the straight line thinking, reasoning, and we don't have a lot of access to our right brain, which is the more abstract, the creative, the intuitive, you know, this kind of tapping into the flow state, which is the flow state is where it seems as if there is something from outside of you kind of flowing through you, like, you know, like, and you could feel it happening too, like when I'm like really kind of drop in, I'm not thinking. I'm not thinking in the same sense that, you know, it's like I'm not analyzing, but I'm like more of an observer, you know, more of an observer. So I'm not, if that makes sense. So I'm kind of almost observing what I'm doing and not like letting my left brain, you know, my thoughts take over everything. So it's a much better way to do things, because like it's kind of you're sort of like letting go of control in a way, but then something else kind of takes over control. Like it's your, you know, you can call it the ether or God or the most important thing about you know, creating is like if you're not tapped into that flow state, you're still locked in your left brain. You're going to be hyper critical of yourself. You're going to, you know, the left brain thinking is like when you go up to a painting and you're like, I'm going to paint, you know, a house, and you have exactly what you think you're going to do in your mind, and then you like anything that deviates from that, you think like, oh, that's wrong, and, you know, and like and so it just opens up a lot of room for like a lot of frustration, because you're trying to do a right brain activity using your left brain, and it doesn't really work that way. At least it's not, you know, you can exercise both muscles, right? You know, so like left brain, you know, would be more like technique and skill of like rendering or more just specific principles of like, you know, perspective, or, you know, I mean, I think what's great about it is there is both, you know. It's like, you know, when I'm the largest step to accomplish anything is from 0 to 1, right? So that's the biggest leap for me. Like once I get my space all kind of in order, you know, relatively, you know, organized and cleaned up, and I have my brushes that are clean, all my favorite ones are lying out, all the paints on the palette, the canvas picked out sitting in front of me that I'm, you know, the one I'm going to work on. Once I'm there, it's all just like, it's just downhill. Like it's just like, as soon as I start, I just kind of can drop in and it goes easy, you know. But it's like that first initial step, you know, to get there. Yeah, so this is a photo I from my road trip I took a week ago. So this is in Moab, Utah. This is probably one of my favorite shots from the trip, probably. So you can get the foreground with the flowers and just the amazing rock structures, and yeah. But I'm just gonna go for it then. Darks in there. Yeah, I mean, so this first stage here, I'm basically just blocking in you get your darks and your, mostly the darks in, and then I'm shaping. I like to use these silicone brush tools. They're really good for just kind of shaping and getting essentially it's like the sketching process down. And I'm kind of, a little rushing through it, but just getting everything where it kind of should be, so I'm starting to get some of the greens in here. And you always work background to foreground, because you don't want to be painting around things, so thinking about that as I'm going too. And then once I kind of build it up more, start to get, then maybe throw like these foreground things here, like the grasses and these cool flowers coming in here. It's actually kind of nice sometimes to have. I mean, like I said, with a plein air, it's about speed, right? And so sometimes when I purposefully trying to go a little faster, things come out. I'll do things I normally don't do that actually might end up being, as Bob Ross says, happy little accidents. The whole idea with Impressionism is you're looking and you're getting kind of an impression of the scene, and so it takes practice to be able to lay down a brush stroke with that kind of energy, and then have it look right. And so I'm so used to working so quickly, but also this first stage too is just about really kind of laying in things quickly and not worrying too much, because it's so forgiving. I mean, I can go in here and I can keep refining it to where it's much more, getting more accurate. So you start more general and then you move more specific, right? So this is, I'm still kind of getting the shapes in the right places, and I could move it around. I mean, I could even right now, if I wanted to at this point, I could wipe the whole painting off and I could start fresh if I wanted to, stone and stuff. Doing plein air painting, it's almost like a science. I mean, it's a science of color mixing, and then how fast my brain can kind of see something and then recognize and know how to dip my brush in a certain combination of colors to then where I can put on the canvas and it can be the perfect color or like the complement, or so there's a lot of science and like left brain thinking with art, but it's a combination, kind of exercising both. And like I said, the flow state is probably the most important thing, because like dropping into that state and like the rest just kind of follows from it. And we all have our different things that we do and practice that you can go into the flow state when you're playing music or cooking or dancing or even organizing or whatever. So you can achieve the thing you want if you put your attention and focus on it. It's a very, very simple idea, but it's also pretty profound. So if you pursue the thing you want, so if you want to be an artist, just keep doing it. Keep practicing. Don't let outside influence discourage you from just making work. When people sort of what I was talking about earlier with right and left brain, I think the most common obstacle for people is is when they sit down and they themselves know they haven't touched a paintbrush since the 2nd grade. They sit down and have these huge expectations for themselves, and it just will hold them back, right? It's like you're sitting down, you're wanting to paint, this whatever thing in your mind, like the Mona Lisa, and like you've never done this before, and they get frustrated, and that's going to be what's going to stop the person from pursuing and keep going forward. Whereas if you look at what you're doing as this is simply one stepping stone of many, knock this painting out, put it aside, do another one, do another one, do another one. Paint the same thing over and over again if you want, But I think that's one. The main thing is just if you want to pursue anything, take steps to do that.